Today we have an exceptional guest with us, someone whose journey is a testament to the power of curiosity and a relentless pursuit of excellence. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to What's Next with Adi. Meet Mr. Rai Nitin Chitransh, the founder of EInovator and a true innovator at heart. That's me, Aditya, a sustainability enthusiast who's on a mission to learn about entrepreneurship and the EV space from some of the best minds in the business. So welcome to What's Next with Adi sir. Starting with, how did EInovator happen? Like, what was the spark that led you to creation of EInovator?
Back in 2019, right, I was working with Mercedes-Benz R&D in India as a program manager. And there I was working very closely with the team, which was involved in building the backend for EV charging infrastructure, right? And also, I was leading the practice for data analytics for the EV charging data, right? Now, what was very interesting at that point, what one question which constantly I used to ask myself is that uh, that why someone would buy an EV? What is that confidence level, right? And that confidence level would actually translates into having access to a large volume or a network of charging stations. And while working in Mercedes, this was one question which always, is coming, that we are building a good backend and we are doing this. But there exactly, kind of this question got answered for me, where there was a layer which was developed called as EMSP, e-mobility service provider. And the main role of so EMSP is a very, very powerful concept, right? And it is just cannot be looked as an aggregation. It's a very powerful concept and it has a lot of flavors to it actually. Now, as a first learning, we just started the EV division of Mercedes-Benz, right? So we understood there that in Europe typically, right, there are good EMSP companies who work in tandem with OEMs. Okay, and an integrated network is an aggregated network is created, and that is integrated with the OEM directly. Okay, now what happens is the person who will buy this EV will instantly have access to a multi CPO charging network, and that will give him a very good confidence that in terms of range anxiety, what would happen and whether I will find a charger on the go and so on. Even in Europe, majority of the charging still continues to happen at home. But when you move out, and as you know, as a borderless can access multi-country in Europe, right? That is where when people start needing charging stations on the highways or POIs or destination charging, right? They have access to such a multi-CPO network. And I think that played a very, very critical role for me to understood that why not have a similar platform for India? Right? That was the spark you spoke about. I said because EV is going to be a next big thing in India. There's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of initiatives around that, right? Around two-wheeler, three-wheeler, four-wheeler was started picking up, right? So that is where it all started. That if we want to look for a successful EV adoption in India, I think a good EMSP platform will be a very critical need in that journey.
Okay. How is it different to be operational in India when you have seen an industry in Europe?
From an energy as a service point of view, there's not much of a difference. Just that the number of charge point operators are much higher in Europe. Okay, overall putting together, they fairly cross 280 plus CPOs, and I'm sure many more would have got it over a period of time. They together construct a network of fairly 600,000 charging points, and that's a massive number. That's a massive number to be frank. India has just started. We have players from small to mid and medium to large scale, right? Where the Tata and Fortum and Charge Zone of the world with Geo and so on. Then every operator has its own unique offering, right? Some of them are very strong on a local level, on a regional level, right? Wherein some of them are fairly doing good at a pan-India level. So coming together, it's not very different, right? It's not very different. Just that the amount of capital, it's a capital intensive business to set up charging stations. So that over a period of time will get better. and the more and more charging stations will come, and it is a very organically growing process, to be very frank. Yeah.
Okay. Also, as an energy as a service company, you must be highly reliant on India's grid.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you see India's grid? Do you see like as is it ready to, supply the amount of energy that you see that would be required in the next 10 years, or you think that some technological advancements are needed? How do you see India's grid today?
So currently, I think we have fairly 350 plus million EV vehicles on the road.
Mhm.
Sorry, not EV constitutes around one between 1 or 2% overall, right?
Okay.
So the problem is not there as of now. Grid has enough capacity to deliver. I think fiscal year 23, right? We were at around 412 odd gigawatt of power with the installed capacity what India had,
Mhm.
and which out of which around 40% is was attributed to solar. So not solar, renewable energy
Renewable.
rather. And yeah, so there's a enough sufficient, I mean, as of today. But eventually, as you rightly said, 5 years down the line, it will be little different, right? And if we would just take the numbers, what comes as a reference, that if we are looking at a 30% penetration of EV, technically we may fairly require around 30 to 35 terawatt hour of power to
Okay.
support that kind of EV vehicle park then. And some of the studies show that, let's say, this like end of fiscal 23, there were around 1,840 odd terawatt of power was generated in India. And I mean, over a period of, let's say, until 2030, it may very ambitiously, it may come around 2,700 change, or even at the lower side, they say around 2,025 terawatt of power, which now you can see as a difference in terms of what would be demanded and where very optimally we can reach. There's a big plan of government, there's an investment infused by government towards it, where the idea has to be add another 10,000 kilometer transmission lines to support with a fairly sizable investment of around 2.4 lakh crores
Okay.
towards power generation together. It's a problem which has to be something which has to be done at a very core, at a source level, yeah, to make the enough power available through grid to support the entire mobility transformation there. Now, together, this cannot be just seen as one solution to this problem. It's not a problem. It will happen eventually, right? Your
Eventually, it will
vehicles
be a
will
problem.
grow, load on the grids will grow. We'll start seeing the effect of that. So, right from a very early stage, we have to start addressing the or problem which we know it is bound to happen, right? And this is what and the government is very serious about it, as I read about it and see. Yeah. Now, but along with that, when you talk about technology, right, technology will have a very big play in order to have solutions around managing the grid, right, around that. So let's say we talk about very first and foremost is, the sharing of power between the grids, right? Connectivity between the two grids, where one grid is able to offset the additional power needed by the another grid during peak time, and so that is something very interesting, which where technology will play a role to work on building solution on TOU, time of charge or time of use, right? Wherein the more competitive cost can be provided for charging during off-peak hours, right? That is going to be very critical. But there you need good algorithms. There you need good data crunching, good where a right kind of estimations can be done. Where what is that suitable time, and then charging during off-peak hours should be rewarded in terms of more discount or a more competitive price. This is going to be very, very encouraging. Smart charging is going to be very encouraging, eventually balancing the grid in terms of demand. Yeah. And also then bringing in a lot of renewable energy. So during smart charging, this is
What is
also
smart charging exactly?
so in smart charging, it's a unidirectional, right? Wherein during the peak hours, charging can be adjusted accordingly. The variance of charging from the vehicle can be adjusted accordingly, right? That means during a very peak hour when a lot of vehicles are getting charged and the load is very high, it can be subsided more effectively.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is one. Next is which is I think is going to be a very, very important area is V2G, vehicle to grid. There's a lot of work to be done in India around that in terms of vehicle chargers overall. but V2G is going to be a very, very critical factor towards the success.
If you could just explain V2G
Yeah.
at its core, कि करता क्या है?
So it's very simple. So smart charging is like unidirectional. V2G is bidirectional, right? Wherein typically when at office or places or home where you connect and you typically will charge 7-8 hours, for example, right? Then V2G enables the vehicle to also give it back to the grid. So when I say that in a very simple manner, it means is when you give it back to the grid, any other charging station in nearby which is looking for an power, right, from its current distribution line, right, this additional power which that other charging station needs at this point can be sent to the vehicle, which is able to subside that in very, very simple manner, right? And this would be a very, very powerful concept because V2G allows you to maintain a battery level of, let's say, 70 to 90%, and any additional charge you are able to give it back. There's a bit of a very slight disadvantage because too much of charging and discharging of the battery at the same time going to impact, but the benefits at overall is much
So
higher
if I
level.
am a vehicle owner and I am, enrolling myself into V2G, can I get paid for my vehicle supporting the grid?
Yeah, there are topics around getting monetary benefits as well. You can be charged less if you are participating in V2G or so. But yes, but that again,
Again, power sharing application.
I mean, that depends, like at what maturity we are coming in and what kind of monetization model will be built on.
The grid thing is the biggest thing, and I believe in looking at the development shits. Grid is never going to be a problem if we start addressing from today.
It would not be, and that is what is happening. There's a good synergy between private and public power generation companies towards what the kind of power needs are going to arise in by 2030 or by 2035, right? And I think, anyways, India is looking at having an installed capacity of 500 plus gigawatt, out of which I think 44% and would be more from non-renewable, and around 65% will come from renewable. So a lot of work in that space is happening.
So also, when I was researching about you, I saw you have a computer science background, right? So as a computer science background guy, you transitioned to banking, then to electric vehicles, and then to as an entrepreneur in electric vehicles. How do you manage to transform your career every time and surviving through all the changes?
Even I also think about this, so it's an experience, to be very frank. Yes, I'm a computer science graduate, but to be very frank, what we start as a career with and what we scale or propel, right, many of those things, what you have learned is more on the job, right? That's what I mean. Yes, the foundation and everything definitely comes through our very rigorous academic process we have, right? In what we have. So a big shout out to that, no doubt about a very rigorous process. That kind of, I mean, people have different opinions about it. I have a very simple opinion that it makes you. I mean, the level of resilience is very high. We have to learn, study too many things, and have to understand, grasp them, and then implement. That kind of makes us very open to learn new ideas and new topics and subjects. And I think that is a very, very big takeaway, what we see. And that actually helped me, right? I started building banks and I was working on banking industry for quite a while, for like 6-7 years. And I've worked for a couple of financial institutes as well, financial product companies as well. But then I started move to automotive industry and started playing a market facing role in the beginning, wherein I was learning more and more about the process for sales and after sales initially. That gave me access to people, that gave me access to tools, that gave me access to places where core of the automotive is there. And now it is up to you, right? I mean, there's a car out there for you. There are people, there are tools, there's technology. You have to go and just find and ask the right question. And the more and more answers you get, if you're curious about, you will continue to learn. And from there, electric mobility transformation I somehow became a part of that change as
You're
well.
always open to learn.
Yes,
You
yes,
had your
that
ears
is-
open कि
yes,
क्या
क्या चल रहा है और कोई भी चीज नई है, इंटरेस्टिंग है एंड अलाइंड है towards the transformation of mobility which I was part of, right? So then there is something, and if C is happening, then it is been thought through, it has been understood, it has the need has been identified, and that is why it is happening, right? There's a tons and there's a army of people behind it. There's a tons of resources invested in it. So it just may not be a random thought. It is a well thought through ideas and policies which are created, and I was happy I was part of it. And I think the reason I think it happened is because I was always open to, as you said, what is new, what is important. I think the more we associate ourselves with what is important and what needs to be done, probably even if it's from a different area of expertise and domain, and if you can put that extra hours to learn, right, and learn it as much as possible from the core and honesty, I think there is no stopping.
So if you're hungry, you're gonna grow.
That is how it works always. Yeah.
Sure, sir. Also, talking about EInovator, what do you do at EInovator and what do you plan to do at EInovator? Because EV industry is adapting. So I believe you will also be incorporating new technologies, new services, maybe not. So what do you plan to do and what do you do today?
So EInovator is a brainchild we conceived in back in 2020 sometime, right? Through and developed this platform, EMSP platform. What I had learned in my while working with the R&D center, Mercedes. And as I told, I think it was very clear that a good EV adoption to succeed, right, would definitely need a platform like this. Now, what was interesting is that every market is different, yeah, and you can't have one solution. What works in market A will also work in market B. Okay, definitely at a platform level, you need a solution in place. But what you are going to give it to the consumer is very critical. The consumer, the EV users in this case, right? That is very critical, and that is where you have to be very early. You have to question yourself. You have to read about your market. You have to understand the needs of the customer, and you have to be very thorough that what am I going to give in the hand of a consumer. That is very, very important, right? I think that is where we had learned, right? I think we tried to make some good decisions there, whether successful or not, that only time can tell. But I think fairly we tried to make some right decisions there. We are a EV roaming company, right? And our clear mission or vision statement is freedom of charging. That is what we want to stand by. If you could define EV roaming for the audience. Yes. So EV roaming in a very simple way means that, Aditya, if you are an EV driver, right, and you want to drive from point A to B, correct? What would be your minimum expectation? That I'm able to find charges along the route. Correct. And does it really matter that the charge? Do you have any preference over charges? No, I need to get my vehicle charged. But there has to be some success criteria for you. Very basic things. It has to be of a certain capacity, like it has to be a fast charger, most preferably, and it has to be working. Yes. Reliable, working, and fast. That's it. Yeah. And if that is coming from a different operators, do you mind? No. Rather, it helps, right? This is what we do. That is what is EV roaming in a very simple and a layman term all about. To offer a good, dense, reliable charging station, charging network to an EV user when they move from point A to B. That is what it does. Because still, majority of the charging will happen at home. But now when you start taking your vehicle, as we used to do with our IC vehicles, right? You have driven from intra-city, intercity, and so on. And if we want to offer a very similar experience, EMSP is the answer for that. Now, EMSP delivery end product rather of an EMSP can depend upon what consumer needs. In our case, let's say there are a lot of fleets we run, and in spite of having access to their hubs, they still need on-the-go charging because they don't want to. There is a lot of dead miles they will incur if they have to go back to the hub, charge there, again become available for operations. Far easy would be that we give them a good charging network on the go, so they are more available for the service, and that would lead to more revenue, and that would lead eventually to the either they're attach their vehicle or working for a fleet. Eventually, the entire business will grow for them. Rather than spending or dedicating time on just going back and charging each time. I mean, we have the answer for it, right? And that is where we come in. We may not be, because we can't be compared to a hub charger. right? We can't be compared that at a hub this many vehicle got charged. That is one problem statement that has been solved in a way where there is a good sizable charges at a specific hub and vehicle gets ready. But once they leave from there, they would continue to have need for charge during the day or night when they drive, and that's where we come in. So it's not about big or small, it is about where you exactly fit in and you drive a value and you deliver it. Coming to B2C, currently India is going to take some more time for a B2C charging or a personal mobility charging to see that kind of sizable impact, right? Because still most of the vehicles, whether four-wheeler, three-wheeler, people charge at home.
True.
Right? But there also we are coming in. Now people are having more confidence. How that confidence is coming into picture? That confidence is all coming into a picture that same thing what you said. Can I get a good network, reliable, good capacity? I may not have to wait for a longer duration of time. And when I go, I should get charged. I don't really mind the charges coming from which operator, but I am the one who is using that charging station, and eventually the revenue goes to the operator.
True.
And that is that layer, that bridge EMSP is able to fill in quite well. Another would be the OEMs. Why not? I mean, that I think that time is coming now slowly, wherein when you buy a car from a EV, let's say from a specific OEM, and you get a entire charging solution from that OEM as a part of the head unit, integrated with the map services through a connected app, or probably having a separate EV charging app, and an independent EV charging app altogether. The confidence of that EV user is very high.
True.
Right? That I'm buying an X, spending a sizable
buying a car
amount,
and a charging network
and
now.
I'm getting a network along with that. Now here I don't have to push any app. I don't have to push my consumer layer. Here I have to be more given a chance. Here we would like to be more available as a platform player who is able to give you a multi CPO network.
True.
Right? Now OEM know their customers best. They have best UI experts with them. They can build some very good experience layer because they know the customer. And why should wherein my role there could be offering a good integrated network and let the OEM take a call and design something very convenient, very effective. Now that can be anything. That is completely OEM's call.
Okay.
How they want to offer that consumer layer. That's not my call. But then what my share to the table can be that they bring the customer, they bring the vehicle, I can bring a good network for them. And putting together, just imagine how powerful this would look.
True.
Yeah.
Certainly.
So that's what is EInovator about, right? We are a pure EV roaming. That's our focus. We would like to continue to grow a reliable network with one mission, freedom of charging. You go and charge. Get access to as many multi CPOs as possible. We request every CPO to come and join hands with us because this is what we want to do. And all we know is that the revenue which is generated from this transaction, a majority of that portion goes back to the CPO only. So we are able to become their ambassador as well, right? Where we are able to also add our own customers, right? And then our indirect customers, which we bring to them when we integrate our network into e-mobility players like an OEM or another EMSP and so on.
Bringing in all business. So freedom to charge is key for the industry to grow with an even larger rate.
That we surely believe. Freedom of charging is the key. Freedom of charging is the key.
So also as an entrepreneur in the EV space, what message do you have for someone watching the podcast about, what have you learned being in this space? Maybe the tough way, which maybe he can know before he starts.
That's the most difficult question you have asked me. I think there is no one answer to this, right? Everyone has their own journey. Everyone has their own share of ups and downs. But I think my experience as an entrepreneur is still very, I'm just a new kid on the block.
I don't think so.
No, I think so for sure. And I want to believe that I'm just another new kid on the block. But when I interact with some of the seasoned EV entrepreneurs, right, and I've been fortunate to work, interact with them and speak with them. I think you have to convince yourself first. You have to truly, your entire action, your entire thought process, your entire communication, your entire conversation should reflect that what you do, you truly believe in that. right? So if that is happening, you continue to think in that direction.
The
Each
belief
time.
system has to be
Has
very
to be
strong.
there, very strong. Resilience has to be there.
Mm.
Not every day is going to be your day. Not every week is going to be a week, and even not every month is going to be a month, right? There will be series of time where you will be tested.
Mm.
The most difficult part, what actually happens is that when you are quite convinced that what you are doing is right and that will happen one day, but if it is taking time, right, you can't control that. World around you does not move as the way you want it to. It will move in its own conditions, it will its own environment, its own parameters, what is required.
Mm.
You have to be there, right? And you have to be very clear and vocal about the value what you put on the table, right?
Mhm.
It may take some time that what you deliver has to come up even better or has to mature, and that is where the entire market and everything will come into a play, right? I mean, like, talk about us, we do a decent number of charging every day, and we publish our numbers as well. We are very clear about that.
Mm.
Right? Because this is the value proposition we bring on a table. We have to be very courageous. Months we don't do good, we still publish that number. There's nothing wrong, right?
Yeah.
That reflects that we truly believe what we are doing, and that is very important. You don't have to munch words. You don't have to. It's very simple conversation to your own self, and when you are having it to somebody, it's a very simple and plain conversation. You have to stand by it, what you are doing. You have to be resilient. You have to continue to learn. Tough times will come, but if you think that you are moving in the right direction, like, just hang in there, right?
Something's gonna happen there.
Just hang in there. And then I just very in quote as well, magic is in the work which you are trying to avoid. Yeah, so that is what I think what is, if you know what is tough, go for it and try to solve
Mm.
it. That will, because probably when we see something as tough, we try to
Avoid
engage
it.
ourselves thinking that we have too many things to do, then solving that. But in truly, if you know something is tough and critical and complex, if you solve that, these other things, what you think as what will keep you engaged will flesh out. And then that's why, yeah, I mean, everyone has 24 hours. You don't have to solve. I mean, in that, what you critically do is very, very, very important.
Oh, this one was quite a deep one. No, so I think, yeah, I mean, that's it. These were all the questions I had.
Yeah.
I mean, thank you for giving your time on a Sunday. It was a
problem.
pleasure to have you on the
No,
podcast.
I'm glad that you called me, and yeah, I think this was a good conversation, directly coming from the heart. That, yeah, but